Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is the ideological leader of the Democrat left. We all know this, right? She can do whatever she wants on social media, and all of a sudden will trend. And all the idiot leftists who think that MSNBC is really high level intellectual stuff, they say, yeah, AOC, she's great, she knows what's up, social justice, wokeness, all that stuff, right? We know it's just the way it is. But today, this is it's trending, and it's amazing. AOC has opened a store online. And this is my favorite one. This is all over social media now. She is selling a sweatshirt that says, tax the rich. Like, yeah, tax the rich, tax the rich people. How much do you think AOC's tax the rich sweatshirt retails for right now? This is the AOC store. I'm pretty sure that's capitalism. Do you think she's going to give half of the proceeds of this to underprivileged families? You think that she's or more? You think that this is just being run out of the kindness of her heart? No, I'm sure she's going to make millions off of this. She's a brand now. AOC is a brand, and I think that she recognizes that she wants to be a very powerful Democrat for a long time to come, and you need money. I always think of AOC as Appellation d'origine contrôlée, which is the French for where a wine comes from. If you ever see AOC, there used to be a great little French place, probably gone now in the West Village, called AOC. So you can either have it be Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez or Appellation d'origine contrôlée. Either one, both AOCs. And she's selling this sweatshirt for $65. $65. That's an expensive sweatshirt. Producer Mark, have you ever bought a $65 sweatshirt?
Certain ones, yeah.
Okay. So you're telling me that's not, that seems kind of pricey to me. That seems like I could probably get a polo sweatshirt or something kind of fancy for that.
It's reasonable for something with a logo or something on it, sure, I guess.
Okay. So, hold on. But see, that's a perfect point. Because if you're buying that, I was going to say Eagles jersey, but I don't want you to throw things at me. If you're buying that sweatshirt at Met Stadium, they're taking you're not just paying for the sweatshirt, you got to pay for the name usage and the profit and everything else, right? So I think that's what I would assume. If you were buying from one of they sell like gear at the stadiums, right? So if you were buying a stadium sweatshirt, it'd probably $65 or $70.
Yes, even online, that's what they retail for.
Yeah. Okay. But this is a tax the rich sweatshirt. I can assure you it doesn't cost her $60 to make this. She's doing this to make a profit. Oh, that's great. $65. Let me see what other gear is. She's got tax the rich, drink water and don't be racist. What else do we have? Student debt with a line through it, and the Green New Deal. It's like a painting of her with the Green New Deal. I love it. I think AOC for our side is great. I think the more people could see this, the better. The more they come to understand that this is someone who is elevated among Democrats, a person who I think if you sat in a room with her and tried to solve relatively simple problems, you would say, oh my God, this woman is an imbecile. But she's one of the most powerful Democrats in the country. And I mean, this is somebody who thinks that it's a great slam on her critics to say that she won some kind of a science award in high school. Yeah. That's when you have millions and millions of followers, that's what you do. And I'm going to tell you this right now. And you may not like hearing this, but you will listen to me say it, and most of you will know it's the truth. And don't give me, I can already feel heads shaking across the country because you know what I'm going to say. You know what I'm going to say. Ocasio-Cortez could very well be the Democrat president of the United States at some point in the future. I know you don't want to hear it, but it's true. Because it's all about the story, the media, the narrative, that's all that matters. Joe Biden thinks he just won the presidential election. The media has already declared him the winner. If they can make Joe Biden president, they can make anybody president. That's what they're thinking. Why do you think there's so much jubilation? One of the big issues for the media, one of the big problems they had in 2016 was that Trump's victory seemed to be a repudiation of the media's ability in its own mind to be able to declare who should win the presidency and to make it so, to make it happen. Oh, Ocasio-Cortez tweeted this out. Republicans are freaking out because we don't use slave wage labor for merchandise that funds grassroots organizing. What's the difference between Trump's merch and ours? Ours is made in the USA. Yeah, but Trump is a capitalist, AOC. Trump is trying to make a profit. His ideology is, I am trying to run a business. AOC's ideology is, I want to take money from everybody else to give it to preferred constituencies using government force while I get to be a millionaire. AOC, if she's not already worth over $1 million, which I'm sure she is going to be worth millions and millions of dollars. Politics and celebrity are now one and the same. Right? Politicians have turned into, at a high level, politicians are all now celebrities with countless ways to monetize. And that's what they do. And not only in shady ways like Joe Biden and his son and China and Ukraine, right? We all know about that. But in more standard ways. They give you a book deal. Doesn't matter how many books. The good authors, the established brands that are writing, thriller novels that sell, 1 million, 2 million copies each and all this. They, at publishing houses, they pay for giving someone like AOC a book advance that's large. Look, she'll sell books too, but they'll give her more money than she's worth because it's a prestige thing for the big publishing houses. It's about the prestige that they bring to it. So, yeah, Republicans are freaking out. No, we're not freaking out. We just think it's funny. We think it's funny because she's supposed to be so anti-capitalist. And like I've told you, I guarantee you that AOC will be within the next, if she's not already, there'll be a report that comes out in the next 4 years, right? So we'll say the next presidential administration, you'll find out that AOC, who's 30 years old, close to it, is worth $5 to $10 million. At least. So she's going to be very rich at a very young age, running around telling everybody about how bad rich people are and how they need to be taxed more. And even more than that, this is great because really AOC is going to turn into an experiment of liberalism in real time. We'll see that she says all this stuff, and just like Elizabeth Warren and these other phonies, but when there's an opportunity for her to make some extra cash, she not only is going to jump on it, she's going to want to pay the lowest possible tax rate she can, and she'll pay elite accounting firms to do that for her. But she wants your taxes to go up. Kind of like the way these Democrats, you're starting to see a pattern here, aren't you? They want you to mask up all the time. Don't eat indoors. Don't eat outdoors at restaurants. Don't see your family over holidays because your sacrifices are for the greater good. They don't want to make sacrifices because that's no fun. So AOC, in many ways, is the perfect Democrat in 2020. She's exactly what the Democrat Party is all about now. An enormous media profile, fame, lots of money, and Marxism. And how do those things all go together? Well, you have to be an enormous hypocrite, an ignoramus, and not really care about what's happened in history because of policies like this and what will happen in the future, because you'll be insulated. She'll still be, she could author policies in Congress in the future that will bankrupt whole industries, which is what she wants to do with the Green New Deal. She's never going to go bankrupt. She'll always be rich. If you were guaranteed a life of financial luxury, wouldn't it be so tempting, if you were an unethical person, wouldn't it be so tempting to use the suffering of other people who are striving and working hard and building, but to take more from them so that you look like a good person? You want to give it to those who haven't been able to make it happen yet. I mean, are we really to assume there are so many fundamental flaws in Marxist logic and so many contradictions in the way they approach the world? Are we really to assume, for example, that everyone works just as hard, that everyone's just as talented? I can tell you, I'm in the media business now, and there are some people who have an incredible work ethic, and there are other people who are pretty lazy. And unless the lazy people are really lucky, which does happen, they tend not to have the same career trajectory as the people that work really hard. Should we redistribute the money among people in the news business and in journalism? No, they would never want that. Right? That's no good. Also, you'll notice that journalists in particular, they usually have this cutoff around $200,000 or $250,000 for people they say is rich. That's because to be a journalist at a pretty prestige publication and to just be yet another journalist there, it's really hard to make more money than that. Usually, if you work at the New York Times, these places, you kind of top out around $200,000, $250,000, and that's if you're pretty good. So rich has to be more than that. And the people that are shaping perception all the time at these publications, they want, rich starts at like $500K, because unless you're an executive or you have other things going on, other sources of income, you're not going to make that working at a newspaper, right? But you can make $150,000, $200,000. You can make that working at think tanks. So that never counts as rich. You'll notice that. That's not really rich. Although eventually what you find with the Marxist logic of people like AOC is that it has to be the workers. The workers do bear the burden of the taxes because there's so many more of them. I mean, you could take every penny, not just a tax rate of people in the 1% made in any given year, and you wouldn't be able to pay you wouldn't be able to pay for the federal budget that year. You wouldn't be able to do it. But AOC and the other leftists, they assume that there are these structural impediments between people that must only be addressed by the government, and therefore they're in the position of a kind of deity. They get to determine what you get, how you get it, when you get it. Kind of like with COVID lockdowns. You're seeing how it all ties together. We all know this is going to be a different and difficult holiday season. There are a lot of people that I would normally want to see in my family, in my life, and I can't because a lot of travel restrictions and concerns out there. But there's a way that you can bring some joy, send some love to people by sending them Bloomsybox. It's incredible. I use this delivery service. I've given these flowers to my girlfriend. I've given them to family members. They're so fresh. They will stay in bloom for weeks in your home. Amazing. Bloomsybox are simply better blooms. When you see the look on someone's face when they get them sent to them, you're going to love this. And there's an incredible discount right now for people who listen to this show. Go to Bloomsybox.com, enter code BUCK to get 15% off and free shipping. That's BLOOMSY. Bloomsybox.com. Enter code BUCK for 15% off and free shipping. You're going to love these flowers. Send some love to people that you can't see right now, but you want to cheer up and send some holiday spirit to.
It's not about saving my life. It's about saving your life. When I have this mask on, I have the heavy one underneath it. When I have this mask on, it's less about me being safe. It's about me making sure that you're safe. It's a patriotic thing to do. It really is. I hear all this about, well, it's a great sacrifice of my freedom. Well, tell that to all the people who went to World War I and gave their lives, and World War II and the Korean War. And come on. You're helping other people. It's not you. It's other people. Other people.
Biden's a moron, and he may be president, but he's still a moron. It may happen, but that's not going to change the reality. And notice what he says here. First of all, he's almost 80. So no, mask wearing, he better hope it works for people who are in his age category. And he's not, I'm not worried about Biden protecting me or anyone, who's around my age or then 20 years of my age, 30 years of my age from COVID, but he's just used to the talking point. So that's what he say. Yeah, he's protecting other people. No, other people don't. I'm not worried. I don't worry about this for myself. I worry about it for people like Joe Biden. So I'm just trying to say, let's keep it real. Let's understand what's really happening here. He's not doing you any favors. But this is the mantra now. It's about being unselfish. Do what they say. Just like when they want to take more of your money to feed people that need it, right? Be unselfish. Let us take from you. Let us make you do things. It's at the center of all collectivist statist action. And then he goes on to say he's trying to convince you that this is not tyrannical overreach. And then he talks about conflicts that have involved the compulsory military service and the draft. And, World War II, that's one thing. World War I, we could have a whole discussion about what we were doing in World War I. But, whether that was something that everyone who should have been drawn into and fighting for, that's a whole other show we should do. I mean, certainly the European powers shouldn't have been fighting it, but why were we fighting it again? World War II, we were attacked. That's different. And yes, that is then. Do you think people were saying, oh, no, let's just, don't worry about it. Pearl Harbor. No, everyone's like, all right. And our country answered the call. Greatest generation. We all know how that went. But compulsory military service is a really big deal. Okay, so to compare masking up to that doesn't make me feel good about things. It makes me think, you're comparing this to World War II? I don't like to hear that. Anyway, and he's also just he's never going to say that this was a waste, but it is increasingly clear that none of this stuff has really worked the way they said that it would. So, and they're never going to say other. They'll say that even if they can't prove it scientifically, theoretically, it's provable, and therefore it's fine. But that's what Biden is also telling you here is. Remember when it was all about Thanksgiving? Just don't travel over Thanksgiving. They didn't say, guys, don't travel for the next 60 days, but that's what they meant. Why can't they be honest? If it's so clear that this is what's necessary, why do they have to keep lying to us? But here's old man idiot Biden telling you can't travel. Play 20.
You cannot be traveling during these holidays. As much as you want to, I have a large family. Barack used to kid me about it. I mean, everything for me is family, beginning, middle, and end. When one comes, everybody comes. You think I'm joking? I'm not. We would have 16 people go away every Thanksgiving. My deceased son, before he passed away, we'd all go away, and we'd go away on Thanksgiving to be just a nuclear family. Mom, dad, sons, daughters, husbands, wives, grandchildren. And the first time we had a Thanksgiving with my wife and myself, my daughter in the region, and her husband, who's a doctor in the region. That's it.
Yeah, don't travel. I know that Biden he knows that the hypocrisy of him telling you all this is something he's going to try to be careful about. But do you think that he's really going to stay alone in the basement over the holiday? I don't know. We'll see. I think it's unlikely. This is the greatest threat to our freedom since the wars after 9/11. That's what we're going through right now. And in many ways, this is even a more pernicious threat because at least on the other side of it, we understood that action was needed. And if we didn't take action, there was going to be a whole lot more really bad, catastrophic terror attacks from Al-Qaeda. In this, which people forget now, that's the truth. In this case, you say, we're doing all the things they've told us to do, and it doesn't seem to work at all. And their response is always, let's do more of those things that do not work. I'm sorry, that's not reasonable. That's not right. And I don't care how many times Joe Biden repeats himself, he's a jackass. I recently got a crash course in home title theft. And look, you got to make sure you take precautions now because this can be economically, financially devastating. It's a crime that goes after your most valuable asset, your home. Here's how it works. The bad guys, cyber thieves, they find your home's title online. Then they use a quit claim deed to kick you off, put themselves on, and then they start taking out loans against the equity in your home. You often won't find out about this until you receive payment demands in the mail, perhaps even a foreclosure notice. You have to take action with the people that I trust, the experts in this area at Home Title Lock. All you have to do is go to HomeTitleLock.com, enter the promo code radio, and that will get you 30 free days of protection. You can also check online at the site to see if you're a victim of this crime and don't even know it yet. That can happen. Go to HomeTitleLock.com, promo code radio for 30 free days of protection. Take action today. Protect your home with a virtual barrier at Home's Title Lock. It's Harsanyi time. Our friend David Harsanyi from National Review in the mix once again to tell us what he sees happening this week across the country, around the world, in NYC, you name it. David, great to have you.
Always a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
So I understand right now that the cases are spiking, skyrocketing, and COVID has everybody really understandably very, very concerned. But I want to look at this now because, L.A. had the mayor Garcetti saying cancel. He said cancel everything. That's what he said. That's the quote. They're on lockdown for weeks. You have other states. I think Ohio's in a pretty severe lockdown right now. You have all this happening. Europe, according to the World Health Organization, was the greatest contributor around the globe to cases as of this past week. And I'm sorry, but I can't get past that for the 90 days or so leading up to the election, we were all told that it was because of Trump and Trump supporters not wearing masks enough that there were still these COVID cases. And that's why, they were actually saying Trump killed 250,000 people with his recklessness. Is he responsible for all the cases in Europe, too? Is he responsible for all the cases in L.A.? I think we need to do a reevaluation here.
Yeah, obviously that was nonsense from the beginning. And people were, I noticed whenever there was a spike in red states, people like Paul Krugman and others would immediately blame the governors there, like in Florida and elsewhere, and ignore what had happened in New York and the tri-state area around NYC, because obviously I think that the biggest mistake made by anyone in politics in America during COVID was Cuomo sending infected people back into the nursing homes. But I'm also of the belief that there's not much you can do about something like this unless you live in North Korea or a really small island like New Zealand, and even they can't really stop it. I think, there's no system or way to stop a virus. It doesn't care about your politics. But clearly more people are clearly wearing masks, right? More people were being locked down, and yet the spread has spiked more than ever. And in Europe as well, where supposedly they were handling it well. In Germany, where supposedly, they're doing everything right, and because they have socialized medicine and this and that. And everyone's just using it for their own political hobby horses. And that's kind of despicable and cynical, but expected at this point.
So, yeah, I'm trying to be as reasonable as I can about this. And look, I know that people get dug into beliefs on one side and the other, and there's confirmation bias and there's repeat surprise, and there are these concepts where, when you've been wrong, you want to believe you're right, so you're wrong again, and all this. I understand all that. But I think we are running right now a real experiment where in New York, we have a lot of severe COVID restrictions in place. It's roughly the same size as Florida. Florida has schools open. Not like they're open. Businesses open. No mask mandate. We're in December, so we're now getting deep into, respiratory virus, the period, that happens every year, whether it's flu or now this COVID-19. And you have these two states of close to equivalent population and roughly the same caseload. One is doing everything that we're told by the mitigation Fauci crew. The other is, not doing those things. Does anyone even? I'm actually asking you this in earnest. Do they have an answer as to how that could be? If the CDC director is saying these are powerful tools, maybe even more powerful than a vaccine. That was the quote about mask wearing. Florida does not have a mask mandate. It is better off than New York, and it does have a mask mandate. What am I missing?
Well, I don't think that we do know why or how this spreads, really. I think we're going to learn a lot 2-3 years from now, and we'll understand what happened better. But the way people treat masks as a panacea is annoying, clearly untrue. Clearly, it's not as effective as they say, or we wouldn't be having these spikes. It's just doesn't make sense. The idea that, oh, this is all because of masks, even though that's the only thing they always blame it on is masks, that, conservatives aren't wearing masks. More than that, I'm just offended in a way, and I realize people are dying, and I think it's serious, but I'm offended in the way we've made masks some kind of patriotic, some kind of patriotic act, wearing a mask.
Biden actually says that. He says it's about patriotism, and that's a quote from the last 24 hours.
From the same people who actually don't like overt acts of actual real-life patriotism. For instance, making sure that the Constitution's still active and in play and effective during an emergency. The people who complain that the Supreme Court is defending religious liberty, not specifically even religious liberty, but saying that you can't pick on churches alone and tell them not to close while letting, strip clubs open or whatever. And this offends people because, religious people are fundamentalists and they don't care about other people's lives and so on. Is there any evidence that one way works better than the other, as you ask? No, and no one really makes a case for it. What they do is they'll talk about Florida when it spikes, but ignore in New York. They'll talk about North Dakota when it spikes, but ignore Belgium and England and people that have had mask mandates and have huge numbers. Their death toll is higher per capita in a lot of these countries, I believe. It's always fluctuating, so I'm not sure, but basically we're all in the same boat. Spain, Italy, Belgium, UK, the United States, these are free countries. You can't lock down entire populations and pretend, and destroy their economies. People are only going to do that for so long. So anyway, my long answer to that question is no. I don't think they've made a compelling or even tried to make a compelling case for why.
Yeah, one reason I like to ask you about this as a kind of sanity check for me is you've always been. I mean, I've read your stuff on this, and obviously I follow your social media posts on this. You've always been a COVID is dangerous, guys. I don't want to get it. Let's try to do what we can. You were willing to do mitigation in the earlier months of this, to the degree that we were told to do it. I mean, I've seen you haven't been a don't tread on me. I don't give a crap what's going on here about anything, guy. I think you've been evolving as we go through this, and I'm sitting here and I'm just saying, and I've been a little more of that, to be fair, but maybe even before I should have been. But now based on, what we knew at the time, but now I'm looking at what's happening across the country and I'm just saying, nobody could come to this with fresh eyes and say, wow, all we have to do is listen to St. Fauci and everything goes away. And I also think that the small businesses, and I've been talking about this on the show every day this week, the destruction that is being, the media's job is to give people a full picture of what's happening in the country, because we are supposed to make judgments that affect not only just the perception that we have that politicians will act on, but, kicking them out of office and voting for other people. I feel like there's no interest whatsoever in how many millions of Americans have either gone bankrupt or lost their life's work and life savings, all under the premise that it was necessary to stop this when we haven't stopped it, David.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was dangerous, and I still wear a mask. I wear a mask for myself because why not? And I wear a mask to make my neighbors feel better. But I have been radicalized somewhat since then because once you start compelling people to do things, once you start throwing certain people into jail and stopping certain people from doing, Hasidic Jews from doing something, but not people celebrating Biden's victory in Times Square, once you start shutting down gun shows as they did in Virginia, but allowing strip clubs or whatever, liquor stores to be open, once you stop, you specifically go after church and religious get-togethers, I'm pretty radicalized. I think people should be able to risk their lives if they feel like it to do things that are constitutionally protected. I'm sorry, I don't know what the infection rate is right now. I don't know what the fatality rate is, but it's under 1%, right, or something like that.
Yes, it's definitely under 1%. It's just a question of is it 0.3 or 0.03? But yeah,
right. So let's say it's 0.5. 0.5% death rate from this virus is not enough of an emergency in my mind to say that the Constitution now is suspended. And that's basically what these governors are doing. I think I've said it before on the show. They act like dictators. There's no debate. There's no legislation. They're just they act like Roman Republic era dictators who, for whatever amount of time there's an emergency, get to do whatever they want with anyone. And the courts have to stop them. And I'm happy to see the Supreme Court stepping forward. I don't care. Listen, people should take care of themselves. There are obviously vulnerable populations, mostly older folks who are, in danger. When you look at the death tolls, this is mostly a disease that kills older people, and we need to protect those people. But that doesn't mean that we're going to throw everything away. I mean, you don't need the Constitution when everything's okay. You need it in moments like this, when people take advantage, people who want to shut down gun shows. And, people think I'm a gun nut. But the bottom line is the Second Amendment exists. And you don't just get to say that doesn't exist because there's a 0.5% death rate from a virus. Most people survive. We act like it's a death sentence sometimes, and that's just
I've noticed this, David. Whenever somebody wants to infringe on the Constitution, and we're speaking to David Harsanyi, he's a senior writer at National Review, everyone. But whenever someone wants to infringe on the Constitution, you're a fill-in-the-blank nut. If you want to go to church during the pandemic, you're a religious nut. If you believe which is, of course, covered in the First Amendment. If you believe you have the right to bear arms, even during the pandemic, you should still be able to buy a gun you're a gun. I mean, this is what they do, right? It's always, and what you realize is that we're not supposed to have this subject to their whims. That's the whole purpose of these constitutional protections. It's not supposed to be, you got it until we say you don't. And this is, I think, the clear red line that they're crossing. But one more thing here. I mean, you mentioned this. I don't think I don't think you're a guy who throws around anti-Semitism, lightly. I think you call it anti-Semitism when you see it. So I just want to ask you, because you've been following this, the way that DeBlasio in New York City has treated the Hasidic Jewish community of Brooklyn, specifically during this COVID period. Is it just that it looks a little anti-Semitic, or you think there's actually something else going on there with DeBlasio?
That's a complicated situation in a way. Now, yes, I mean, I don't know that he walks around saying, boy, I hate those Jews, but I think functionally speaking, his obsession and his focus on the Hasidic Jewish and Haredi Jewish community in Brooklyn is functionally anti-Semitic, because he doesn't do it to black churches and he doesn't do it to anyone else. He doesn't do it to Black Lives Matter protests, and he doesn't do it for any kind of liberal institution.
They're Trump voters, by the way. This is what people often forget. Right. Orthodox and that kind of Jewish believer tend to be Trump voters.
And this is why arbitrary rule by one person is a huge problem, and why we have the Constitution, because you can, use an emergency to go after your political opponents. But there's something deeper in New York. There's always been sort of this rift between, the black community, frankly, and progressives in the city, and the religious Hasidic community and other religious Jewish communities in Brooklyn and elsewhere. It's been going on a long time. And I think that that's a little bit a part of this as well. It's complicated, but I do think that listen, again, I don't know that he hates Jews personally, but functionally speaking, this is what matters. Saying something bad, calling me some name, some name because I'm Jewish, is offensive to me. But stopping people from worshiping is functionally and real world anti-Semitism. It's undermining the First Amendment, but also specifically for one people. So yeah, I have a big problem with that. And DeBlasio, who I think is just probably the worst mayor New York's ever had. I mean, I have to maybe historically in the 1800s there were a few worse, but he is up there, certainly in modern times.
Totally agree with that. David Harsanyi, everybody, read his latest at nationalreview.com. David, always good to see you.
Anytime. Thank you.
The question now, the one that you just raised, is where are the Republicans? Where are the Republican United States senators who perhaps heard of or listened to that 46-minute mentally ill rant last night from the President of the United States? Where are the Barry Goldwaters and the Hugh Scotts from a long-gone era who went to the White House to tell Richard Nixon that he had to go? Anyone who listened or heard what Donald Trump said last night and were commissioned by the people of their states to represent the state and the country, who did not think maybe we should go down and take this away from him, invoke the 25th Amendment before more damage is done. Where are these people? That's the question of the day. That's the question of our time.
Invoke the 25th Amendment. MSNBC's Mike Barnicle here. That's right. In the last weeks of what they believe to be the end of the Trump presidency, they want the invocation of the 20. They're never going to give this one up. You see, it's not enough if Trump loses. It's not enough to have a new president. They very much want Trump to be humiliated and ruined. And I think they're also recognizing that he is going to be quite a force if he is not the president. He's going to continue to be somebody that they're going to have to deal with, that he's not just going away, that he's going to cause problems for them. And so that's why they want an even further repudiation. And can I just say, there's nobody who really believes, I would hope, that we're going to start listening to Democrat Russia collusion truthers at this point for advice on what we should do within our own party. I'm pretty sure about that. There's nobody who really believes we're going to listen to them, right? I mean, come on. And to answer Mike Barnicle's question, we have people that on the right, unfortunately, are willing to turn against Trump. We have people on the right who are willing to say things like this, to come at him now and tell him that it's all over. We've got Mitt Romney, we've got Ben Sass, we've got these people that really are just desperate, yearn for that strange new respect from the good people, the New York Times, that strange new respect from CNN that'll last about a day, but they need it. They need that. They want that pat on the head. They want the scraps from the table. And that's why all these Democrats are telling us, oh, yeah, this is what we should be concerned about. Play 5 here. Here's Dick Durbin, another one.
Most Republicans in the Senate won't call Joe Biden the president-elect. What do they say to you privately about this when you ask them?
They're afraid of the Trump voters, the backlashes in their states and districts, that they'll lose the next primary. That's it. That's the bottom line. I think they're embarrassed by the circumstances that they face. Listen, General Flynn is calling for martial law. Some of these other folks in the Republican Party are calling for the mobs in the streets. I mean, this is a situation which it's comic in a way. I understand that, but it's serious in a way, too. We have got at stake the stability of the United States and the American Republic. It's time for both political parties to get serious. Let's move on this COVID-19 relief. Let's hope with a new president we can turn the page.
Dick Durbin. Republicans are embarrassed. Meanwhile, Republicans are still united behind the president. But yeah, let's take advice from libs about how to run our own party. They love to do this. Notice they don't ask anyone who supports Trump over at Morning Joe.